but that was my first initiation into the real estate game. And it was a good one because it really taught me straight up that being honest and forging a relationship with the people, actually having a conversation with them. And even, if I did something right on that day, it was all about the relationship. It was my willingness to have a chat with a person, no matter who they are.
You're listening to the Real Estate Sessions. I'm your host, Bill Risser. Listen in as I interview leaders in our industry, getting their stories and their journeys to the world of real estate. Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 243 of the Real Estate Sessions podcast. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for telling a friend. I really can't thank you enough. It's just been a blast producing this podcast and talking to all these interesting people from around the world. And today, I get to go around the world. I'll actually be visiting down under. We'll be in Queensland, Australia. I'll be talking to Peter Schravemade, who is the Strategic Relationship Manager with BoxBrownie. So join me as I chat with Peter about Australian sports, Australian animals that can kill you, and of course, real estate. Peter, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me, Bill. Great to be here with you this afternoon, your time. But yes, thanks for having me on.
I've had a chance with you over the last month or so. You've been very kind, and you've helped out Fidelity National Title with a webinar, and then you've done some other things around Connect as well. And it just really, this time difference, I guess we just think it's a big deal to be East Coast, West Coast here, but it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon when we're recording this. And what time is it for you on Friday morning?
Yeah, it's just 10 past 7 a.m. Friday morning. So yeah, I mean, such is the time zone difference.
Yeah, that's what you do. You were up at what time this morning, taking care of business in the States?
Yeah, well, I get up, I service the nights, and that's not a funny way of saying I have an illegitimate career that's less than reputable. That means that I get up early. So it will start anywhere between midnight and 2. This morning it was 2 a.m. I started at 2 a.m. and I kind of worked through there. But I mean, I'm not complaining about that. Fidelity National, I think you have been the one to thank as far as that's concerned, because we're always happy to bring a message, whatever that may be, to the US. So I'm not complaining about the time zones. I'm not complaining about getting up early. I actually prefer it, to be honest.
Cool. I like it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about where you live, because it's obviously going to be a bit different for most of us, but you live in Queensland, Australia, which is like one of the most northern states, the northeastern portion of the country.
Yep, that's correct.
And I got to be honest, I don't know Australia that well. Mm-hmm. I know the East Coast is more populated than the West Coast. And yes. I looked at a map, and I looked at a Google Earth map of Queensland, and it looks like a big giant desert, but people live on the coast. Am I close?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate. So there is, the largest part of Australia is the desert, and that's in the middle section. Queensland, where I live, which is in the northeastern side, as you said earlier, we have the coral reef that sort of stretches up a large part of the coastline. We've kind of the same climate, I suppose, as California. Bit more humid is the way I would put it. And then, yes, we have lush green kind of tropical oasis down the side of Australia. And then as you stretch into the interior, it becomes quite sparse, rugged. It's the outback. So, that's, you'll hear that on any kind of movie that's trying to, emulate Australia. That was what we would call the outback. And Queensland is known famously, I suppose, for its wide range of people and wide range of lifestyles, where you can sort of be in the outback, herding cattle, or you can be on the coast as a surfer chick or a surfer guy, or, there's also the metropolitan areas down towards the South, Brisbane, the Gold Coast, and the Sunshine Coast. So yeah, there's a range of things in Queensland. It's very beautiful. If you ever get down this way, Bill, you're always invited to come and say good day.
I'm going to make that happen. I promise.
That'd be brilliant.
Yeah. There's also this other thing about Australia. There's like a ton of animals that can kill you in Australia. Am I right? Like, that kind of creeps me out a little bit, from the water to the land.
Yeah, there are there are a plethora of things that could kill you over here, and I do find that America makes a bigger deal about it than anywhere else. But the one thing I'd say is there's not people dying from them, with the exception of maybe the crocodiles. you very rarely get people dying from things like spiders, which is a huge phobia. Snakes, they don't like humans. They don't like hanging around humans. Yes, we have some deadly ones, but there's not a lot of people dying from hardly any. In fact, crocodiles. The most people that get taken by crocodiles are tourists who are ignoring big signs that say there is a crocodile swimming in this lake.
Right.
So we've had a couple of shark attacks recently, and that seems to be more and more prevalent as waters warm up and the sharks now go to colder climates. So yes, there are a lot of things, but it shouldn't be feared. If you get off the plane here and you stick to most of the tourist attractions, you're not really going to see them, except from behind bars in a zoo, I suppose. So
there you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Give me the biggest misconception about Australians in the US.
About Australians in particular.
Yes.
Is the one that I cannot get my head around, and I suppose you get this everywhere, is that I may know Bob who lives in Melbourne or Perth. I will get people bail me up at a stand and go, I've got a friend Susan, and Susan, she lives in a place called Melbourne, and Melbourne, you would know Susan, right? Do you know Susan? I'm like, I've never heard of. I don't know a Susan that lives in Melbourne. Melbourne's a big place. That's like saying, Bill, do you know Jorge who lives in New York?
No, I don't. Be one right.
New York is a bigger place than Melbourne. I'll take that for granted. But it is the concept of the fact that I may know someone because we're on this large block of dirt together. And I find that cute, actually. I don't ever take offense to it. I find it quite funny. And sometimes I just answer yes, Susan, and maybe start making something up about that just to propagate the myth that we may do that. The other thing is that, the biggest misconception about Australians in general is that we put shrimp on the barbie. I cannot get my head around that. And we're responsible. We started an advertising campaign, but we don't call them shrimp. The shrimp to us are tiny little prawns. They slip through the grill. You can't actually put them on a barbie.
So what are the jumbos called?
Well, they're called prawns, and that they're the size of your hand. You cook them on the barbie. I'll be cooking a few of those up a little bit later today, Bill.
Awesome.
So
good to know. Good. So the prawns on the barbie. I'll remember that next time.
It doesn't have the same ring, does it?
It doesn't really. No.
No.
Yeah. So look, I've had the opportunity to hang out with you, and we talk a lot about different things. I think I'm kind of a big sports fan, hanging out with Carpenter and all those guys.
Yeah.
And I have to share a story. I was right at the birth of ESPN, so it's somewhere in the early 80s, I would imagine, that I was introduced to this really cool sport called, in the US, we called it Australian rules football. I still see the officials with the one hand or the two hands going down. Mm-hmm. It's still a big sport in the country, right? Are you a fan? Do you have a team you support?
I support the Brisbane Lions, and for the longest part, I had a contract as the musician, as the official musician for music at breaks and at the end. Well, my band did anyway. So I used to see a lot of their matches. I wouldn't say I'm as big a fan as some of the other sports that we have here and some of the other sports globally, but yeah, very much like you, I enjoy a lot of sports. So AFL or Aussie rules football is one of them. I am actually a fan of soccer, would be my biggest one, and in particular the English Premier League. I do watch your MLS from time to time, and we have our own league here, as well as there's the J League in Japan, the Bundesliga, the Serie A in Italy, and there's no shortage of that. Or there is a shortage at the moment, as you're probably aware. But I'm a Raiders fan in the US. I am also a Vegas Golden Knights fan. I haven't officially adopted a basketball team, but I watch a heck of a lot of it in various pubs and clubs over there when it's going. I suppose I do like the Golden State Warriors, but I don't like going for a team just because they're top of the pops. So generally, if there's a team on, and you'll find this is a very Australian thing, I will go for the underdog every single time, which is why I like the Vegas Golden Knights, because I think if anyone's stupid enough to put up a ice hockey team in the middle of a desert, they deserve props, and I should be going for that team.
And look, you got a great first season. We go to the finals.
We did. I could not believe it because I was going for them. I actually fell in love. I'm a goalkeeper in soccer. So I fell in love with a guy called Marc-Andre Fleury, who is the goaltender. I think I've got that terminology right because I was calling him a goalkeeper for the longest part. Not knowing
either one works. Yeah.
But
goalie, we call them goalies.
Yeah, well, he was a freak. So in that whole season, if you watch that season, the amount of saves that the guy pulled off to actually get them into the final. I mean, it's a team effort, it has to be. Yeah. But he is a machine, that guy. He was stopping stuff I didn't expect him to. And that was when I fell in love with ice hockey, by the way. I have here, and you won't see it on the podcast, but I have with me a Oilers hockey puck because I'd never seen one before. I'd never seen a hockey puck. At the age of
vulcanized rubber, you got to see
that's it. Yeah. And someone, I said they were Canadian because it's almost sacrilege to not know what a hockey puck is in Canada. But I said to a Canadian, I've never actually seen one. And he gave me his favorite Oilers hockey puck. I've been told that the Oilers aren't very good, but that's okay. I've got a hockey puck.
Everybody listening, I've got Peter's address, so just send the puck here. I'll ship them in one shipment.
I was impressed. I was impressed and scared at the same time. Can you imagine that thing traveling at you really fast? I mean, I know
over 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I know we get Americans who watch Australian sport and go, "Wow, you guys hit just as hard or harder." I believe with as gridiron or NFL. But you don't have pads. But that hockey puck, that is like a bullet, and it's big. That would do some damage.
Yeah.
So
I love this. Do you know that the founder of Fidelity National Title, Bill Foley, is the owner of the Vegas Golden Knights?
I did not know that. Know that.
What a wonderful selection of teams. We'd like to thank you for supporting.
Well, the strangest part about that is the guy that got me onto that. I give a big shout out to Zim Jezza, who's with Urban Nest Realty. He has season tickets, so every time I'm in Vegas, I hit him up, and religiously we'll go and watch the ice hockey together. But yes, he's a massive fan. I'm a massive fan. I love it, and you know how much time I spend in Vegas, so.
Yeah, and now the Raiders are going to be there.
I know. So. I wasn't going for them. I was going for them when they were in Oakland. Just so you know, I actually am not a fan so much of Vegas to go there and stay just because I'm there all the time. But anyhow, that happens to be where both my teams have ended up. So
that is cool.
All we needed.
And your favorite, we can't skip over because I've got listeners that love the EPL. Who do you root for there?
Oh, I'm a Liverpool fan actually, and
oh my god,
we are having the dream season right now.
Which looked like it wasn't going to continue.
I know. And you know, if you know anything about the history of Liverpool, 6 years ago we had the biggest choke known to man where we were a stack of points ahead and we got overrun. And so there were, you know, that's never going to happen this season, just the machine that they are. But by the same token, it was looking like we wouldn't get a title again. Gee.
That's awesome. I love to hear that. So Sean Carpenter's good friend, Todd Meininger, who we do a little sports podcast with, will be thrilled to hear it because he's also a Red fan. So
right.
Congratulations. You're like on a winning streak, except for the Raiders.
Apparently.
One day.
Yeah, well, there's another season coming up now. Who knows?
I love that. So let's see. You've been in real estate a long time, right? Before you started with BoxBrownie,
yes.
Real estate was who you were.
Yeah.
Was that something you were thinking about as you headed off to university? Did you have some kind of a background with family? Where did that come from?
No. My degrees are in music, so not at all.
Yeah.
When I finished school or high school over here, I don't know how you would call it, maybe college. Maybe not. I finished high school, which is grade 12, and then I desperately wanted to go and study music. I'd been accepted. I was quite talented as a musician at that stage, and I was accepted into my choice of university across Australia, and I chose to go to one in Brisbane called Queensland University of Technology, and I went there and I did an undergraduate, and then I went on to study a master's at the Beijing Conservatorium of Music straight after that. And that concluded in 1998. There's an indication of how old I am. In 99, I had done a bit of travel and I got back to Rockhampton, which is the place I was born. Now, that is in the sticks. That is up north. That is just as hot as hell. And I was there. My younger brother is who was responsible for getting me into real estate. He was an accountant for a property developer. He went on to be quite a successful property developer in his own right. But at that stage, he was 3 years younger than me, straight out of an accounting degree, and he was doing the books for somebody who was developing property. And he said, the issue that we have is that we have all of these properties that we're building from scratch. They are delivered, and we can't find an agent who will not only give us the service, but the big one was be honest about what is going on with the transaction. And because the agent's not honest, we don't know where the market's at. So he said, how would you feel about coming and sitting on some open for inspections? Some, they were having open homes, and there were 3 of them. And I sold 2 of them that weekend. I didn't know anything about contracts. In Australia, you're legally allowed to sell 6 before you need to be licensed. So at that stage, I wasn't even licensed. Well, that was it still is the requirement now. 2 of them went down that weekend. And over a period of time, that started what was a successful relationship. I just couldn't believe the amount of money that he was willing to pay me for having turned up and just talked with people on the weekend, listened to what they had to say about the property. I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to overcome objections. I didn't know how to. You would say I completely fluked it. In fact, it came as quite a surprise to him because he's had these open for 5 or 6 weeks and not any interest, not any offer. And then all of a sudden 2 offers that weekend, and then the next one went the following week. I don't know. I don't believe that had anything to do with me, but that was my first initiation into the real estate game. And it was a good one because it really taught me straight up that being honest and forging a relationship with the people, actually having a conversation with them. And even, if I did something right on that day, it was all about the relationship. It was my willingness to have a chat with a person, no matter who they are, no matter what walk of life, no matter what they look like. I don't care. Not prejudge them as they walked in about the car that they'd just gotten out of, but actually have a conversation about how that product, if I could call it that, would suit their lifestyle. And if there was something I did right that day, it was that. I even said to them, I've actually never signed anyone up on a contract before. I am here on behalf of my brother, who is the property developer, and here are the things that, I was very upfront and honest with them about how that had happened, and that didn't change. That was the foundation. I think my real estate career, as it sort of progressed, the one thing that never changed is the honesty in the transaction. I just feel that that's irreplaceable, and we're in an industry where a lot of people are attracted to this industry because of greed, and I have never really felt that is the way to go. I don't think that's the way to I've seen people have a successful career. I just don't know that it lasts for a long time.
Were you able to keep music as a side gig and have some fun there as well? That
was the beauty about it, is that that was it. If I could name 2 more weird careers to have, it would be those 2. But when you actually think about it, I'm working as a musician Friday, Saturday, Sunday during the day. We're rarely doing open for inspections, but we can do them. And then maybe Thursday or Friday during the week. And most of my work as a real estate agent is done Monday to Friday and Saturday in the town that I was in. So it worked. It absolutely worked. And I guess it was the 2 careers that were sort of there. And never the tween did they meet. I couldn't really go to my poor muso friends and sell them houses, but I'd certainly have a lot of fun playing with them on the weekend. And it just was the way it worked. It worked very successfully. In fact, I only really stopped gigging full time when BoxBrownie just started to roll, and that was 2 years ago. Bill, I stopped gigging full time.
So now I have to ask, because I don't know the answer here. Type of music? What was your instrument or instruments? What was the name of the band?
Well, I'm what they'd call a session musician. So I'm a keyboard player or piano player, and that's the formal training. And there's no specific band. So a session musician is one that's for hire. So I would have an agent, and she or he would give me a call, and they'd say, there is a music festival coming up. I have an artist. This is the brief. Here are the tunes that you're going to play. If there may be charts, sometimes there's not. Sometimes it'd be a last minute call up. You need to get your boards, get your keyboards. That they're over here in the studio. You can see. I realize your listeners can't, but get those. You need to head to the airport. You're flying out to such and such to do this gig, and here is the contract. Here are the tunes. Listen to them on the way there, and away you go. And quite often, as I got better and better at it, there'd be no rehearsals. You'd turn up and you'd just be shoved into it. So a lot of what I did was contract based. There was no there's no specific band, although I was in a quite a successful children's band here in Australia called Jelly Kids, and I have awards as a composer for those children's bands in my state, the Queensland Music Awards. We were a finalist one year, and we were my daughter and I wrote a tune, and we ended up as highly commended 2 years later. But yeah, so there's been things like that, but most of who I would play for would be major domestic acts or Australian Idol rejects. They're the ones that didn't make it. And I love you all if you're listening out there.
That's all. So I've never seen you pop into a piano in a hotel bar or a lobby. You must have done that a few times in the States. It
happened a heck of a lot in New York, at Inman Connect in New York. There's a jazz bar just around the corner from where the New York hotel is, called the Rum Bar. It's called the Rum Bar, and there were 3 events at that, and the in-house band would have me in the piano every night. There's plenty of footage up if you go to the Facebook. If you go to Facebook and have a look,
I'll find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I love that. That's awesome. Let's as you kind of go through this journey somehow. And I know you had multiple levels you worked a little commercial. You helped with I think it was a hotel chain in developing some properties.
Yep.
Somewhere though, you run into the folks at BoxBrownie, Mel and Brad. And how does that occur?
Interestingly, it wasn't Mel or Brad that I ran into. In fact, I didn't meet them first. I was the operations manager of a hotel franchise when I heard about the concept that was to be BoxBrownie. Via that name, I knew what a BoxBrownie camera was. Right. And so I'd heard Craig had taken me for lunch. He was providing a service to me at that stage. He was a service provider to the hotel industry in hosting a server where we stored our CRM. I suppose that's the easiest way to say it. If you're into tech, you'll understand what that is. And he said, I've got a mate who at that point I didn't know was Brad. And my mate, he has a concept. Here is what the concept is. I want to run it by you. And at the very basis, the concept was we have an app, and just an app for your smartphone. You take a photo with your smartphone. We're going to enhance it for not much money and send it back to you. And he was gauging whether I thought that was a good idea or not. And I thought at that stage, I actually thought that was an excellent idea. I really, really liked the concept. And, I gave him a bit of advice on what we'd like to see, how my impression of that was as an agent. And then I thought nothing of it. I went away. I continued on for another, I think it was a year and a half with the hotel chain until I resigned my job, largely because I was not spending enough time at home. You will find that quite humorous, knowing my travel schedule since then. Yes. But at that stage, I was probably traveling about half as much as I was now, actually going to hotels and either setting them up or troubleshooting when there was a problem. So long story short, I had resigned my job. I was sitting with my feet up on the sofa. I had quite a lot of holiday leave owed to me, so I was sitting pretty for some time when that same guy, his name was Craig, advertised for a personal assistant. And it was for BoxBrownie. He had listed that he'd put it on his Facebook feed, and I'd seen it. And I'm going, I wonder whatever happened to that company. I thought it was a great idea. So I put my full resume in, and I had a serious resume. I put the words I could type per minute. I have done courses in Excel. I was at that stage, I was licensed in every state and territory in Australia, including New Zealand, which is not part of Australia. For those of you listening, it's the next door neighbours. But I had a real estate license, so I've applied for a PA role. Don't know what they're paying. Don't care. Just wanted to, I guess, get attention, get their attention, and it certainly did. He sent me a message back going, "What are you doing?" My resume, by the way, was a graphic design book because I've also managed a real estate publication.
Wow.
So I had printed it as a magazine. I'd sent it in. I get a call. He goes, "You're going to have to come in and meet Mel." Never met Mel before. Mel was this young guy of Asian appearance. Not that that really matters, but I met this young fella, and I'd done some research before I had come in. And you know, the number one thing, if you actually Google Mel, is the fact that he graduated from MIT at the age of 15 with a bachelor in mathematics and computer statistics, like just a stupid degree that no one wants to do. But Mel had done it, and he'd done it at a stupid age, like a very young age. So I came in to meet this guy, and he was quite quirky. And my takeaway on Mel was the same as everyone else who meets him: highly intelligent young man. And Mel, basically, they laid it out to me at that stage. I asked them what BoxBrownie was doing, and I was told that BoxBrownie will close if we don't make a fist of this in the next 6 months. If we can't make money out of this, we're going to close it. That was what I was told. I was also told we can't afford to pay you. So I said, "Oh, that sounds like a good job. I'll take it."
Okay.
And that was the beginning of the end. BoxBrownie had its first employee. Oh no, I shouldn't say that. There was another guy called Gavin who was employed, and he was doing a customer service role at that stage, also operations, kind of everything. Back then we had no one, so that was the beginning of meeting Mel. And I didn't meet Brad until my first day on the job, where I rolled in and there was this guy. He's the owner, founder of BoxBrownie. He was a real estate photographer. He was still shooting houses at that stage. That was when I met.
So let's progress a little bit with the company then. Let's talk about some of maybe the key points, right? Was there a pivot somewhere into a different model? Do I have that right, or was it just refining as they went along?
Yeah, I'd say the pivot was
went along.
Yeah, I'd say the pivot was happening at that point. We had the area that we live in, we're indebted to. Those people have been our guinea pigs for years. We've really stuffed up a lot of edits. They've been so loving, so understanding. We haven't. If you've ever used the service, maybe you've had I'm hoping you've had a positive experience. These people didn't. They were our pioneers, and at the start, we just wouldn't get it right. We wouldn't deliver to timeframes. There was a bunch of things going wrong. We didn't have scale right. In fact, it was about 6 months before we got the scale right from myself starting. I would have started 4 years ago, maybe June 2016, and it was about January, February the following year that we actually got that down. But a lot of the products changed between then and now, and so did the prices. Certainly, the virtual staging product that has been one of our key contenders is we nailed that. And to date, there'll be a lot of other staging companies that disagree with this, but to date, I can't see the level of quality in any other staging service in the world. Now, that's not just me being proud. I know that we've got the reflection shading, the actual perspective right. We deliver it. It looks real. The time frame, the way we piece it together in the back end, that was really what happened during that 6 month period. Is we nailed that. We also started a render piece, which has been going quite well between now and then. And then the entrance to the US happened around January 2017.
Yeah, that's where I saw BoxBrownie for the first time, an Inman event.
Well,
right?
It would have been.
That's where I saw him for the first time. Yeah.
Yeah, it would have been in San Francisco. Actually, it would have been 6 months later in 2017. That was our first American conference. Happened then. Our introduction to the US happened via Inman. I got some guy calling me up. I'd never heard of Inman. I didn't know what it was. For those of you listening, Brad, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I thought it was a gay magazine because we were reading it as Inman, and we had this call from someone called Craig Rao, lovely bloke. One of my dearest friends over in the US now, but I had no idea who he was. He's called us up out of the blue going, I've tell me what a BoxBrownie is and tell me what you do. And we'd showed him, he'd trialed us. And I remember they did an article on us maybe in February of 2017. History might contradict me on that, but February, March, somewhere there. And our service just went kaboom. Like that was when we got the scale right, Bill. But That was our service went kaboom, and we had to learn how to fix that very, very fast. I remember not sleeping much for about a week after that Inman article. Thank you, Craig Rao, for that, and Brad. But that was the start of our foray into the US. It really launched us over there.
Let's talk about that scale, because I think it's when people, because I know the story, right? And so the fact that you can work round the clock globally as a company, that's staggering to me. And so putting that together probably wasn't simple, I would assume.
No, it definitely wasn't. I suppose that's where the three parts of BoxBrownie come in, or let's at least say two. Mel's tech is genius. It's hard to emphasize how important that is right now, but the tech, the beauty about BoxBrownie is the ability to introduce a client to an editor in a short amount of time for an agreed product at an agreed price at an agreed expected delivery. So that was the genius of what Mel did. If you take all of the everything aside, if you strip everything back, and it's not about real estate, or it's, because we also do automotive, online, retail, fashion. If you take all of that aside, the delivery time, introducing a client to an editor for an agreed product in a short amount of time was the genius of what we did, or what Mel's tech did, really. And a lot of it's to be said for that. That made scale a lot easier. Yes, there are other issues. All of our editors are manual. How do you deliver on a massive scale doing that? So again, tech has sorted a lot of that out, but there's a lot going for us at that particular time. The only people who were doing anything similar to us had a sweatshop in Thailand or Vietnam, and that's unsustainable. COVID has even taught us that's unsustainable, because these people can no longer get into work; they have to work from home. Whereas all our editing team, all of our customer service team are geo non-specific; they can be anywhere in the world, and that's actually put us in really good stead through the period that we've just been through.
And then you manage, obviously, they're manual. I mean, every edit's done manually, which for me is mind-blowing. I just thought it had to be automated somehow. So there's got to be training of all of the staff. And
Yeah, correct. So, well, the editors in their own right will come to us largely trained. They'll sit at some kind of testing product, depending on what they're doing, whether it's floor plans or graphic design edit or CGI or renders. They'll sit some kind of test, and they'll have to achieve several benchmarks before they actually come on board. And then there's a bunch of training that then follows part of that as to how you would use BoxBrownie and onwards from there. Probably the most that we onboard at the moment is customer service staff, as we deal with the volumes of calls and live chats that we get, which has been quite difficult over the COVID period, to be quite frank.
I want to give you a soapbox for a second. Tell the realtors in the United States why they're missing the boat on floor plans.
Yeah, right. Well, actually, there's a bunch of stats that we're bringing out recently in the future. We're working on them at the moment just to make sure that they're right and they're balanced. But the floor plan stats existed for some time. We know, because it's an NAR stat, that on MLSs, less than 5% of listings on an MLS will have a floor plan attached to it. Yet there are consistent studies, also by the National Association of Realtors, that talk about what purchasers want. Every year, NAR bring out a generational home buyer report. If you're not reading that, get a copy and read it. Don't read it in bedtime. Read it first thing in the morning and find out what that actually speaks to you. But it talks about, in there's one slide in particular that talks about the things that are most important to a purchaser in the transaction, which I find important as a real estate agent. Now, number 3 on the list, behind good images and copy with all essential detail, is a floor plan. So these surveys for the past 5 years have told you that the third most important thing to your purchasers is a floor plan. Yet only 5% put a floor plan on the MLS. And you compare that with globally what happens. 92% of Australian listings have a floor plan in residential sales residential letting, commercial sales, luxury. You go to the UK and it's 86%. You go to Europe, it's 74%. Even Thailand has 72% of listings have a floor plan, yet only 5% in the US. And it staggers the mind to understand why that is. I have a few ideas. The biggest one is that it's just not glamorous to the real estate market over there, but also from the way that you operate, which is very different to the way the rest of the world operates with the dual agent process. I believe that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, I think you're right. Peter, I saw you talk about the floor plans on our webinar, and it's just shocked me. I've been trying to talk to people, everyone I see. Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Go to BoxBrownie. Check this out. It's $24. It's unbelievable.
Thank you.
I'm trying hard. Yeah.
I appreciate that.
If you had to rank, because there is some great stuff inside that tool. What's popularity? Let's just go. What's your most popular service? And maybe it was the top 3 or 4.
Yeah, so the most popular by some way is a virtual staging service. There's no real doubt about that. Even at the price point it's at, if you know anything about our services, most of our services sit under the $10 mark. Virtual staging's $32. So it was actually for some time one of our more expensive edits, and even at $32 when we came to the market, it was being offered at $96. So it fit in well and it was affordable. I think there is a huge culture. You want to talk about something that Americans do better than any other nation. It's the ability to understand what virtual staging does to a listing. So, whilst I sort of take a broadside at floor plans, the culture at, here in Australia when it comes to virtual staging is quite poor. They don't understand that purchasers can't actually visualize what a space does. So, if there's something that Americans are doing exceptionally well, it's the understanding that we need to actually place furniture in the room that's realistic, that looks like it is. Whether they're using a proper stage or a virtual stager, I actually don't care which. I always advise people to stage professionally if they can. Virtual staging is for all of the rest of the edits. But yeah, that is our most popular edit. Our second most, I wouldn't say popular, but our second most used is the image enhancement. There are a lot of people in America taking photos with their smartphones or by themselves. And even the levels of what you would call professional photography does not reach globally what is understood to be professional photography. So we have people who take images from their professional photographer and re-edit them through us. Now, that's mystifying to me because I would never allow a professional photographer to deliver something that we need to edit. But we have that. We have people take their photos themselves who want them edited. And then don't forget, there's a massive market for that kind of thing in rentals where the budget it just isn't there to go and take photos. So rentals, commercial, there's really, they are really doing it tough, especially commercial right now, as far as trying to get good imagery, professional imagery, and a lot of people use us for that. And the third one that I'll talk about, there's kind of a tie, is the new product, virtual renovation. We've only sort of had that for the last 12 months, where we digitally renovate a space that, needs something done to it, or perhaps has a objection. I used to hear all the time as a real estate agent, the wife would come in, and I'm not saying this in a chauvinistic sense. It just happened all the time. The lady and the partner would come into a listing and she'd say, "I don't like the color of the kitchen." And I don't know how many times I heard that objection thrown at me. There'd be hundreds of it. It was never said by the bloke, so I'm really not being sexist there. But yeah, we would hear that all the time. Well, what virtual renovation actually started is allowed us to change the color of the kitchen and effectively remove that objection. And if you extrapolate that out, that's kind of everything. It's not just the color of the kitchen. I don't like the aesthetics of the front of the house. So it is physically, whilst it's physically changing the property, the idea of it is to demonstrate what the property could look like, and needs to be disclosed. Let's be upfront about that. You need to disclose that this has happened, but there's no better way of showing the potential of a property than actually renovating that property and giving them a maintenance contractor's quote on what it would cost to get there.
Yeah.
So that'd be up there. Item removal is taking out cars in front of houses. So a less glamorous edit. No one knows it's happened. You look much less like a rock star to your vendor, but also very important.
Yeah. Well, like I'm a massive fan of what BoxBrownie's doing. I think it is one of the easiest solutions for me to present to a realtor when they give me a problem with imagery.
Can,
Like,
can
have
I?
you not heard?
Well,
Have
can
you
I
not
ask
heard
you
of
a
this?
question? Why is that? Why is it so easy? Is it that? Do you always see imagery that is not wonderful? Can everyone use improvement?
Yeah,
Riddle
it
me this.
happens. It happens. Yeah, especially with newer agents, maybe that don't have a lot of money, right? You're a tool that they can use immediately. And I think that's key because a lot of the tools that can help somebody is for somebody maybe the better, more capitalized and who's got a little, experience in the game. This works for somebody who's just getting started. And so I think that's just brilliant and wonderful. And the fact that you can do it as cheap as you do it is just amazing. So
I appreciate that, and I appreciate
Yeah.
you forwarding it to anyone that's out there. That we
not at all.
love the fact that people. It's humbling to the fact that people talk about us so far away. And when we started in a garage in a little place called the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, it's really humbling. So thank you for that.
Cool. I got to ask you my final question. I've had you here way too long. Every guest, and Mel answered this question too. I wish I should have looked up Mel's answer before I. Anyways, what one piece of advice would you give a new agent just getting started in the business?
Oh, look, that's easy. That's easy for me, especially North American agents. I believe there is a huge absence in North America when agents start of people actually teaching them that they're marketing a product. Normally, they're marketing a product to a specific target audience. And if you don't understand that, it makes it very hard because you guys have the dual listing system where you've got a marketing agent and a buyer's agent. What I find in the US is a lot of agents start out as the buyer's agent, and I don't get that progression. I just don't understand that part. I think if you want to be a car salesman, they don't teach you necessarily how to go out and get the buyer. They will teach you how to market the various products you have as cars in front of you. And that's the same in a clothing store. How do I market this garment to the person that comes in at Home Depot? Whilst they might talk about the purchaser, they're going to talk about the products that they have first. What I don't understand in the North American industry is why there's not attention given to how do we actually market this product and who are we marketing to? And if I was an agent starting out in North America, I would challenge you to learn how to market that product successfully first, and that product being a house. A lot of agents think that they are going out there to sell houses. Every house is different, and treat that as a product. Find potential target audiences that match that product and find the mediums for which to get them. And that would be my challenge to you is describe that product the best you can. Do your very best with that. And everything else post that will generally fall in line. But that should be the first thing that you actually set out to do in your market is learn how to sell a house. And that sounds really silly. It sounds really condescending saying that, but the amount of new agents I meet who do not know how to do it, and don't be ashamed of admitting that's you and fixing that fault. So move forward, learn how to market a product. You'll find that all different. There's all different ways you could do it. You don't necessarily have to take my advice, but go and partner up with someone who has done a lot of that. You control the listing, you control everything. So do that.
Peter, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Well, I have a ridiculously long last name that will be printed somewhere here, and there is only one Peter Schravemade in the world, so far as I know at this stage. So you can find me on just about any forum except for Twitter. I'm on Twitter, except for Tinder and Grindr. I'm on all of the others. You can also email me, peter@boxbrownie.com. So any of those forums, I'd love to hear from you. If there's something I've said today that offends you, please hurl abuse at me there. I will respond gladly. But more than that, if I'm in your city, look me up because I'd love to share a beer or a pint with you at the pub. And Bill, obviously, that's you as well. So
awesome. Peter, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for letting us get on this schedule of yours, this crazy nighttime schedule. And love what you're doing. I can't wait to see you back in the States.
I really appreciate your time. Thanks. Can't wait to catch up.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Sessions podcast. To leave a review or rating, go to ratethispodcast.com/RE sessions. You can also subscribe to the podcast at your favorite podcast listening app. Finally, you can go to therealestatesessions.com and subscribe to our email newsletter and be notified whenever a new episode is released.